AI PIN and R1 were destined to fail. Despite the enormous hype surrounding them, great product design, loud marketing, involvement of former Apple executives, obvious strategic flaws were overlooked from the start. We were promised a screenless future, an app-free experience, and we got this.
Your AI pin needs to cool down for a few minutes.
Positioning these devices as smartphone replacements was crazy. Smartphones are an integral part of our daily lives. We use them as tools for communication, accessing information, and entertainment. Why do people buy smartphones in the first place? Uncovering this will give us an answer to why these devices were doomed from the start. But what could they have done differently? Spoiler, it's not becoming an app. Let me give you a quick context first. The Humane AI PIN is a wearable AI device. It is developed by Humane, a startup founded by former Apple executives. It is designed as a screenless alternative to smartphones, and so far Humane has secured over $200 million in funding. Some of the features include voice controls for interaction. If you can't use the sound, the response can be projected to your palm via laser. It operates independently from a phone using its own mobile data. You can make calls, send messages, and request information. Despite the initial hype, the AI PIN's debut was disappointing. It was poor at basic functionality. On top of that, it's pricey. $6.99 for the device, plus $24 per month for AI services. Which basically means paying monthly just to get your device to be barely usable. In the other corner, we have Rabbit R1. It's an AI-powered personal assistant device developed by Rabbit and designed by Swedish firm Teenage Engineering. It's bright orange, has a scroll wheel, and it is inspired by gadgets like Tamagotchi. Works as a standalone device with its own Rabbit OS, tries to differentiate itself with an AI model trained to execute actions across various apps and websites. It's called Lamb, and it was unveiled in 2024 with 20,000 units sold initially. And just like Humane, it failed at basic functionalities. It was slow, it was buggy, and in terms of what it promised, it failed miserably. It costs $199 with no extra monthly fees. They are targeting the lower end, while Humane targets the upper end of the market. How they position themselves? Smartphone replacements. Let's look at the smartphone market. For the sake of this video, I'll be focusing on the US as a market and looking through the lenses of the ultra-premium and more price-sensitive markets, since it appears that Rabbit R1 and Humane are actually targeting different markets. In general, both of these companies are targeting a broad range of people. The adoption rate of smartphones is high among every age group and demographic, and almost 97% of Americans own a smartphone. When looking at the most important factors people consider when buying a new smartphone, we can find battery life, how long does a battery last on a regular day, the longer the better of course, storage, how many photos, videos, files you can store locally on your device, brand, how desirable the brand is, what it signals and things like that, operating system, camera photo quality, speed, how snappy does the experience feel, camera video quality, screen size and the quality of the screen, battery charging time, and last, durability. It looks like this when we sort them by importance to buyers. What sticks out from this list is the operating system. You see, the iPhones, the Galaxies, the Pixels, they're not just devices. They're platforms, and they get to determine what software is allowed to run on these devices. In the end, that's what makes most of the experience using the device. This layer is usually created by independent developers, and there's a lot of value created for the end consumer in that process, but more on that later. Let's look at the AI PIN first. Given that design is quite Apple-esque, it's built from quality materials and it has a hefty price tag, we can safely say that the Humane AI PIN is going for ultra-premium smartphone market. It starts from $6.99, then you have to pay $24 per month for subscription. It means that if you don't pay on a monthly basis, the AI PIN will lose around 85 to 90% of its features. Let's do some quick math. So on average, you would use your smartphone for 2.5 years. So that's 30 months. So 30 times 24, that's 720, plus 700 for the device itself. So AI PIN costs $14.20. Let's dive in. Battery life, shamefully bad. You get a charging case and two boosters that act as the magnets for the pin. They also charge the pin. Each booster can last for about 2 to 4 hours, so it's pretty bad for a device that claims to be resistant throughout the day. The reason why it gets 1.5 is because of the hot swapping for boosters. Storage. It has 32 gigs of internal memory, while it sends the data to the cloud where you can see it, and probably deletes it from the local memory after a while. It uses eMMC instead of the standard UFS storage, which is slower, so 1 out of 5. And then the brand, and you have to give them props for this. They fully leveraged the fact that their founders came from Apple. That was mentioned in every news story about them. Also, the AI pin design was clearly inspired by Apple design. This kind of works in the short run, but it's probably not the best approach for long-term results. It's not just how you appear, but can you deliver on it? So, 2. Operating system and software. Humane AI pin allows you to do calls and send text messages, but it has a problem. In order to use it, you have to have a separate phone number, and to get your contacts, you have to connect various accounts from where you can pull them in. You can forget about using internet-based texting. And sending an image will send a link to Humane's web portal. Also, there are no social apps available at the moment. There's one cool thing though, translation. It would listen to a person, translate it, and then it would translate you back to that person. But also it doesn't work all the time. To interact with the pin, you have to have a clear intent first. There's no aimless browsing, you ask a question and you get an answer. On the other hand, if you're just walking in real world, you can ask the pin what does it see. You can point to the coffee shop or restaurant and it could summarize the reviews and provide you with a general one. It could, but it's painfully slow to do so. You can make notes, they appear in the web portal. Shopping is a bit tricky because you don't get to control the process through the visual UI. You can't pay, take payments, do other banking tasks. It doesn't have apps, so calling a taxi won't work either. Trying to navigate to a certain place also takes a lot of time and sometimes doesn't work at all. Clear one. Next one is camera photo quality. On the paper, it seems like a decent camera, 12 megapixels, but they appear noisy. I'm guessing that the main purpose of pin camera is to provide input for the AI model, but that's not the primary purpose people use their smartphone cameras. It's creating memories. It's a 2. Speed. Usually it takes a long time to get an answer and therefore the whole UX doesn't feel snappy. It gets fun because it's fast for things that don't require sending the requests to the cloud and back, like taking notes, calls, etc. Camera video quality supports HD video recording. There's no 4K support. Max is out at 15 seconds, so gets 1. Screen size and quality. Obviously, AI pin doesn't have a screen, but it uses laser beam as a substitute in cases you can't use the sound. The problem is that the laser projects 720p in resolution and it's monochrome, so try previewing a picture you just took. Also, to use the screen you have to put your palm up and try to keep it as flat as possible to see what's being projected, and it's not super visible in bright situations. Gets 1 out of 5. There's no data on battery charging time. But given that it's small in size, you have a separate booster you can use and you also have a charging case, right? I would give it 4 out of 5. And last, durability. I found one case of storm wind blowing the AI pin away without leaving noticeable dents. It's built from sturdy materials after all. It's water resistant as well, finally a 5. When we add the usual suspects in ultra premium segment like iPhone 15 Pro, Galaxy S24 Ultra and Pixel 8 Pro, we get this overview. Of course, you would strive for a diagonal from top right to bottom left to have a well-rounded product. But you see how Humane AI pin falls short of competitors they try to replace. Before we get into what they could have done differently, let's cover the R1 first. The device is focused on the price-sensitive part of the smartphone market. It's made of cheaper materials and retails at $199. Since it's a different market, the order of value drivers is slightly different. But in a similar price range we have Samsung Galaxy A35, Motorola Moto G84 and HMD Pulse Pro, which is a former Nokia. Battery life is just as bad as Humane's AI pin. But it doesn't come with a booster or charging case, so 0.5, at least it has a battery. The storage is actually quite good. You get 128 gigs and you can use it to store images, voice memos, app data, training data, etc. A clear 4 because it is in the same range as other devices featured here. Unlike AI PIN, there are no basic features. No timers, no alarms, no GPS, no navigation, no emails, no calendar. You can use the rabbit hole feature to save your voice notes. It doesn't work offline, but you can insert a SIM card for mobile data, but you can't make phone calls or send text messages. For things like browsing, searching, education, and accessing information, it's intent-based. You have to ask a question. The biggest selling point, according to Rabbit, is their large action model. At the moment, it has 4 apps enabled, and to set them up, you have to be off-device, on a desktop or laptop computer. I think that the LAM is the biggest problem for Rabbit, but bear with me. Operating system and software is a 0.5. Camera, photo and video quality. You can't record any of the two, so a clear 0. Just like with AI PIN, it's used for AI input, which is not an ideal case for most users. The next one is brand. They successfully coated themselves in a hip, modern and youthful coat, but they failed to deliver. It's a 0.5 because they pledged to improve with updates and new releases. Battery charging time. It took 45 minutes to charge this tiny battery. The other batteries in this graph are 5 times larger and they are fully charged in about 80 minutes. So a clear 0. Durability. Well, it's made of plastic, which is a weaker material than steel. It's glossy, which can make it slippery. It has a rotating camera thing, which can be a concern, but overall quality is good for the price. And it comes with a 1-year warranty, a solid 4. Screen size and quality. Well, this one has a screen, a plus. It will also show you an answer or app UI on the screen, another plus, but it is relatively small compared to other 3 devices here. It's also low-end TFT1 compared to others. And last, speed. Does seem quicker than Humane AI PIN, which is not a high bar in the first place. It also sends the data to the cloud for processing, so your standard smartphone is still a lot faster. 0.5 out of 5. Now you see why they were doomed from the start. They were trying to replace a smartphone, and then when you plot everything on a map, you see how bad they are. But what could have Humane and Rabbit done differently? As I said previously, iOS and Android are dominant platforms. They operate their own proprietary app stores. Stores allow you to download various apps for various things. They act as complements to your smartphone. They increase the value of it. On the other hand, iOS and Android's popularity makes independent developers create apps for these platforms. They compete, the best one wins, the platforms take their cut, and consumers are satisfied. If you search for why Windows Phone failed, one of the main reasons is that nobody wanted to develop apps for it. You had to rely on third-party hacks to get the most used ones to work. Which brings me to the R1 case. I think it will fold. You see, the large action model doesn't rely on regular APIs. That's too restrictive. Even the developer of those APIs or those apps would not allow you to use or to recreate the core features somewhere else. So they actually do it on purpose. That being said, the LAM is nothing more than a bot, robot, or a macro script. That's the reason why Rabbit R1 can't become an app living on your existing smartphone. Both iOS and Android do not allow full automation of their native systems, just limited ones. Even if they did, the problem would arise from app developers. They have APIs for a reason, to restrict certain behaviors. If LAM wanted to automate an app that relies on engagement for making money, they would be blocked immediately. The idea is really cool, it just seems to be unrealistic. Humane should stop trying to be a substitute for a smartphone. It could easily find its place as a complement, becoming the ears, eyes and hands of a smartphone while it is in our pocket. How would that work? First, I'd focus on iOS just to narrow down the market a bit. Also, they try to mimic Apple's design in every possible way. It looks like it would pair nicely with iPhones, at least visually. With the upcoming Apple AI, they could lean into that feature completely. They could rely on it to do the entire processing. AI PIN would be there when your phone is away, in the pocket or in the backpack. Their web portal should become an iOS mobile app, where you can see your interactions and notes coming from the PIN itself. Moving the core processing away from the AI PIN would probably come with some battery saving benefits. They could remove a couple of sensors in the hardware and make it less expensive. Heck, they could even kill the subscription because it will go through the iOS built-in AI model. But even with all of that, they still had a really rough launch. And the time will tell if they're able to actually survive all of this backlash. That's all I got. See you next one.